It's the Abba podcast. Let's go. And the next guest on the podcast, we're blessed to have the presence of the brother Mohamed Dhaini. Assalamu alaikum, my brother.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah, my brother.
Talk to me. How's
An
your
honor
day?
to be
How's
here,
things
brother.
been?
Wallah, my day's been amazing, man. Been looking forward to this all day, all week. Actually, we've been really long overdue for this podcast. We've been speaking about it for a long time.
Yeah, it is a long time coming. Look, scheduling, everything has to align, and alhamdulillah, it's finally done so. Talk to us about yourself.
Alhamdulillah,
How's
brother.
life? How's everything? I know there's a lot going on around in the world. How's your mental space? How's everything going with you?
Well, alhamdulillah, man. Life's been amazing. It's been, of course, with these times now that we're going through, it is an emotional roller coaster for all of us. To our brothers and sisters that are experiencing torment and displacement. And if you ask if you were to ask anyone,
Yeah, just a bit of technical difficulties, but you can. We're good.
Muslim feeling, I think everyone should be. Can you hear me?
Yeah. We just had a bit of technical difficulties, part of the process. Sorry, we missed a bit of it. If you can just rewind a bit.
Yeah, my brother, no, it's all good. So I'm saying that because of the atrocities that are happening overseas and the pain that's been inflicted and the displacement and the generational trauma, what we're witnessing, if you were to ask anyone, any Muslim, we're all in a very similar emotional state, feeling the pain of our brothers and sisters overseas. But on a personal level, man, like outside of all that's happening in the world, it's been a really beautiful experience and journey the past couple of years. God tests you and puts things on your path and manufactures your journey in a way where it's a special one, but you come out, blessed and alhamdulillah.
No, God bless you. So we're gonna get in a bit about your journey. Talk to us about the inspiration to serve and give back and be a leader and be the voice of the people. Because when did that start? The first time I crossed paths with you, it would have been in a library at Cogra. Now I didn't know much about you. We've probably in passing spoken in a few words. Then all I knew of your story was you go overseas, you go to better yourself, you go to learn, and then you've come back. And then the next time I realized your presence was in Laylat al-Qadr in the mosque, and there was an inspiring episode that I saw, and it spoke a lot about your character. And from that moment on, I knew I was coming after you for the podcast. And then since then, we finally teed it up. But if you can give the viewers some insight into your journey and what led you to take the steps that you took, I think it could be very beneficial to most.
Oh, thank you very much, my brother. Yeah, no, look, my journey, it, it started when I was really young. And look, as you grow older and you reflect and you think about your past, you can sort of see where the journey actually began versus where you thought it began. I thought my journey began when I was, 17, 18, when I went to the Hausa. I was fortunate to have had that opportunity to go overseas to study in a seminary with, a group of amazing brothers that, for 7 years of my life, I thought that was the thing that started it. But really, it started earlier. I think I developed an emotional connection to religion at an earlier age, but more particularly to community. Remember when I was, funny story, when I was in year 6, in primary school, I was a really good public speaker. And, long story short, I was put in a place where they wanted me to go for, the school captaincy and whatever that was. And I remember that day I forgot my speech. And I was able to improvise a speech on the spot. And I eventually became school captain. And all I really done was just try to understand and connect with people. And when I really dig back into my past, I think it was those little things that my love for community, my love for, putting humor in the hearts of others, my love for, uh, learning about myself, learning about the world, learning about religion, teaching, that led me to Hausa. And then really everything just changed, man. When I came back from Hausa, I developed a strong identity. I learned a lot of tools, essential tools in Hausa, which I took on with me. And when I came back to Australia, this was pre-COVID. I was only coming for a couple of months, and then COVID happened, and then we got stuck, and it was just not an option to go back. And I was going through a lot of personal issues at the time. I was going through a divorce at the time. And really, it was no longer an option to go back to Hausa. But I had built this identity. I'm 23 years old. All I know is Hausa. All I know is, studying to be a sheikh and to teach and community. I don't have really much qualifications outside of that. So I have to really develop this whole new identity. And no one's really accepting the whole, he studied overseas thing. So I'm literally starting from scratch now. And that was a whole nother journey, looking back, and I see that I had to really discover things about myself. I had to discover, religion, but in a different way, in a new way. And what I mean by that is, so people aren't like freaking out, like, what's this guy talking about? Is he making up this new religion? No, it's about, I think, as you grow, your perception of what religion is changes. I used to see the goal in life is to be a religious person. So I would always manufacture myself to be a religious person, do the religious things. But what I learned in that period of, of that emotional roller coaster that I was going through, that is that, religion is not the goal, it's the means. The goal is perfection. The goal is to be the perfect version of yourself. And now the best version of yourself, the way to achieve that is through religion. So I started to look at, okay, if religion is the means, Islam is the means, that means everything around my actions as a Muslim has to be empowering. I have to be an empowering individual, empower myself, empower others. I have to be the best version of myself. So I didn't shy away from, going to different paradigms of thinking, to psychologists, to neuroscience, to, the academics, and going to Sufis. And I didn't mind going outside of my field because I felt protected. I have the Islamic Hausawi base. I'm solid in my theology. So I was able to go out and learn so many different ways of thinking and then bring it back into Islam. And I started to see that if I connect the neurological and the psychological and the sociological aspect to prayer, and as well as the spiritual aspect, I now realize why prayer is important. It's not because it's the goal, it's the means. And that's where I started to create this whole new paradigm of thinking. And then, I started to get into the world of life coaching and teaching, and, which has always been a passion of mine, of course. And I think I'm jumping all over the place.
No, it's fine.
So I'm gonna give you the ground if you have any questions, if we want to dig deeper into any of that.
No, for sure. Look, it's something that's very interesting from what you just said, is that you wish to explore and question and go and seek, and it reminds me of the story of Nabi Allah Musa and Khidr. You have to go and explore and see these and bring them back and bring them to Arsenal and grow from there. But where did that come from? Because more often than not, especially from the seminaries, they usually don't teach you. And it's very, I don't know how to say, but it's not the norm for people to go out there to each and every field and to grab that and come back to give it. If you get what I'm saying, usually in those circles, they stay within themselves. So where did you get that from?
Yeah.
Where was that from?
So if we were to go back to that period of my life where it's safe to say that I was coming out of this emotional cocoon, right? To explain this point, let me explain to you what identity is, right? When you develop an identity, or your sense of I, or your ego in this world, when you're growing up, essentially it's like you start with nothing, and then it's the people that are around you, the things that you learn, the things that you hold on to. Your identity is growing with your relationships, right? The close relationships to you, they become a part of your identity. The things that you do most become part of your identity. You're associated with it. So for example, if you're studying to be a doctor, then that part becomes part of your identity. Even if you were to leave the university, it's going to take a while, a bit more time for you to take the fact that I'm no longer a doctor out of your identity. So when I went into the Hausa, I started to mold this identity, right? And the problem I was facing was I was having an identity crisis, because I on one end I'm Australian, and on the other end I'm a sheikh. And it was hard. I was too Aussie for the sheikh, and I was too sheikh for the Aussie. I was always in that identity crisis where I didn't, like, where am I? Like, how do I really act? And of course, this all comes down to your maturity and your development. These are questions that you have to ask yourself, right? And then eventually, when that period did come, and I was in Australia, and there was a phase in my life where slowly I started to see really important relationships in my life fade away. And I started to feel part of my identity was fading away as well. I started to question my own identity, because now, in the span of 2 or 3 weeks, what I've been building for 6 or 7 years is slowly crumbling in front of me. I'm getting divorced. I'm going back into my parents' house. I'm no longer back in the house. I couldn't finish. So, like, where am I really? How do I? So, what is my identity? And that is really what they say. The straw that broke the camel's back. Where I'm like, hold on a second, who am I? And the only thing I knew for sure, the only thing that I was certain of, the only thing that I could swear on my life about, is that I truly believe in that moment, because I'm sure you've experienced this before, Abbas, when you're in a period of time in your life where you feel like there is no one that can help you in the world but God. Like,
Oh, yeah, for
for
sure.
a fact, that you're at a period where no one can understand you, no one can relieve you, no one can help you, no one has the power or the capacity to be there for you but God. When you're in that moment, it's a practical lesson of la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. So what I knew for certain in my identity was, A, God is my protector. B, my understanding of the attributes and the infinite wisdom of God. And C, my connection to the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, specifically Imam al-Mahdi. I believe that I'm in debt to Imam al-Mahdi. The driving cause of everything, to answer your question, is me paying back my debt to Sahib al-Zaman. Because for 7 years, he fed me, he dressed me, he gave me a place to live. The hawza is literally the money, the mal al-Imam. Everything you are paid, everything that is spent on you in the hawza is the money of Sahib al-Zaman. And that nurtured me, that nurtured my blood, that made me grow as a human being. So I took these are the bases. I've got Quran, Allah, Ahlul Bayt, Imam Mahdi, and then I'm like, you know what? Now I can take these and I can barge into any science in the world, because you can't move the truth from these four. You can't. Like, truth is bound by God and the Quran and Ahlul Bayt. So because I had that strong foundation, I had no problem reading for the most problematic of people. And once you start to see through them and start to understand human nature, then you start to apply it to yourself. And my whole journey was about understanding myself, really. Like, that's why, like, I knew that if I want to learn about myself, I can't be confined to text. I can't be confined to the way people think. I can't be confined to an institution. I can't be confined to a scholar. I have to spread. Like, I have to just go and just see and learn, and that's what I did, man. And it took me to a place where I created my framework, which is the inner kingdom, which is the basis of everything that I do now, which we can get into in a moment after you
No, most
poke
definitely.
at
Ahsan, it's
me.
honestly inspiring, because at that moment you could have easily taken the victim mentality and the world's against me and I'm entitled for 1, 2, 3, 4. Because more often than not, when people have traveled and have sacrificed, they do come back with a sense of entitlement that everyone owes them. Everyone's indebted to what they had done. And it's contrary to reality, because at the end of the day, even if you're studying in this country, you've sacrificed 10 years of your life as a student. Then you start as, your wages aren't the highest, and then you go on and go on to make noise in your field. But at the end of the day, the struggle is real, and everyone has those tests, whether personal, private. And to see how you came out of that is refreshing, because you've taken the theory and applied that in a sense where you can now be of great benefit. And if I'm not mistaken, that is exactly what Imam Hassan alayhi salam says in a hadith, where the difference, and he puts a distinction between a weak and a strong believer. And a strong believer is more preferred because he can go on to help others, and then he can inspire others like yourself. And then in that process, you've established this system. If you can go into that a bit more, maybe the people will be inspiring.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Look, honestly, just to to add to that point, this I don't want people to misunderstand. This wasn't like, oh, I clicked the button and it was easy. Like I did go through those phases where I did victimize myself. I was the victim. I played the victim card. I thought everyone was wrong, and I was asking myself the wrong questions. It's when I learned to change my questions that my life changed. Exactly what you're saying. It's that literally the movement or the transition between the victim mentality to the growth mindset. It's that transition that changed everything. It was from changing the question to why did this happen and why did they do that to what could I have done better? What can I do now? What is in my circle of control? But to get into the framework of the inner kingdom is, of course, I've borrowed it, and I'm standing on the shoulders of the great scholars before me. I don't want to act like I'm some innovator. Of course, I've created and molded the kingdom, but initially, the framework of the inner kingdom, it's like a story-like way of explaining my personal journey in personal development. It's like how I took everything that I've done, applied, used, and got results from either from myself or from my clients or from my students or from people I've worked with in various different communities in different places. Everything that I've done, and I molded it into a framework which takes someone from not knowing themselves, not knowing their potential, to unraveling the different elements and components of yourself. So, for example, understanding in the inner kingdom, there are 5 primary components, 5 characters. If you understand these 5 characters and the role of each character, then you achieve the goal of knowing thyself. If you know thyself, then you've opened the path to knowing thy Lord, which is the ultimate goal, right? So it's the inner kingdom because you're getting to know God by knowing yourself. And it starts like an inside out approach. Instead of trying to search for answers outside, go inside. But there's a lot of spiritual, of course, everything that I've mentioned, most of what I've mentioned is, you find it in books, you find it with lectures, but it's what I find different in what I've proposed is that it's really hard for a normal, average, day-to-day Muslim to have access to the deep secrets of, or the methods or the strategies of going within in a way they understand. Sometimes you'd have to go study philosophy, you'd have to study so many different things. But in the kingdom, I explain that there are 5 components. And the first component is the body, right? Which is the palace of the inner kingdom. That you need to maintain a healthy body. So there's a framework for that. Then the second is the guardians, which are your emotions. Sometimes that are looked really undermined our emotions. What is emotions? What are emotions? How do we control our emotions? How can we control our reaction to emotions? How much do emotions influence our behavior, our decisions? How can we reverse engineer emotions? How much do emotions impact our spirituality? Questions that are really important, right? And the guardians, because they guard the inner kingdom. Then you've got the third element, which is the throne. And the throne is the meeting point between this world and the spiritual world. The throne is where the heart sits. Your love for other people, your love, the energy source for emotion, the thing that makes you turn to God, the thing that makes you build relationships, the feeling inside you when you read Quran, when you look at the Kaaba, when you're in ziyarah and you have that feeling when you see that beautiful shrine. Those experiences that you have in Shahr Ramadan, in Laylatul Qadr, the feeling that you have towards your newborn child, it's a real feeling. People that suffer heartbreak, you find that the whole inner kingdom is affected by that, right? So the heart, how do you take care of the heart? What is the role of the heart? What are practical things I can do? How can I bring the heart? And mind you, this is something that the whole personal development industry doesn't have, because they don't have Muhammad wa al-Muhammad, right? They don't have what we have.
Yeah.
So the fact that we have Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam to guide us through the inner kingdom is a strength that they don't have. And I'm trying to bring this, I'm trying to merge these two worlds, the Islamic, esoteric, spiritual, and the Western personal and character development. And then you've got the fourth component, which is the prime minister, which is the mind, going into the mind, understanding the mind, the conscious mind, the subconscious mind. How does the mind affect the body? How does the mind create emotion? What's the mind's role? And then you've got the king, and this is who you are. This is your essence, and that's your soul. And that is something that, regardless of your belief, if you are a believer in any religion, you believe in the soul. That the soul, وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي. The soul is it's from God. Its secrets are from God. No one understands it. I'm not going to explain to you what the soul is. No one knows the secrets of the soul. But we can say that when God created this creation, the intention was the soul, and it's in this body, in this vessel. And the goal is to perfect the soul. And you perfect the soul by mastering the inner kingdom, and you master the inner kingdom by using religion. That's the framework. So it's not, it's no longer religion is like I pray to pray. No, I pray to perfect. That is what Islam is about, and it's embodied in our religion, and that's what I'm trying to bring to our youth.
So how long has this project been? Have you been working on it? Is it finalized? How long is it in its operational phase at the moment?
Okay, so this framework, mind you, I actually gave a lecture series this past Muharram in London, where I actually gave a lecture series on this framework, on the inner kingdom, where I dissected it all. But the framework itself has been in development. So I've compiled everything that I've done in the past 10 years, from the moment I began in Hausa to, till today, from experience to knowledge. So you can say it started 10 years ago, but formally compiled and in the works of compilement around 3 years. I've been working on it, practically embodied and implemented just over 12 months. I've been using it with clients. I use the elements in the framework with my students where I teach at the private school where I teach currently. I use it overseas with various communities, and it's proven to be extremely effective. And mind you, I have clients that are not Muslim.
I was going to get to that.
Yeah, Christian clients that are falling in love with God, right? And falling in, and feeling like this framework has a severe impact on them because it's universal.
The framework you've discussed, I know that you went into some sort of depth, but just for the viewers, you haven't done it justice because there is a lot of layers to it. And how have you relayed, or how have you told the client when they first come in all of this? Because it's tough to absorb if you don't have a base knowledge of, if you don't know yourself, you don't know your Lord. The qalb al-mu'min is the arsh of the Rahman, and then you continue to go and break down all these levels, because some people might be dismissive of the offset. How do you break it down? Because in the community, we lack an abundance of knowledge, and if you don't have a base or a foundation, these principles might seem far-fetched. For example, if I'm to sit here and tell someone now and ask you the question, brother, do you reckon we had this conversation or this podcast in the realm of the souls? Someone might look and say, like, this guy, or look where they're going. They're just taking it to another extreme. But if you break it down, it's not far-fetched to say that. If anything, it's more than likely that it happened. And that's where our connection happened. And then the free will and predestination talk comes, and we were always going to cross paths. That's a predestination, free wills, whether we accept the friendship, and so on. Have you encountered many difficulties in relaying this message and teaching the people, especially if they have preconceived notions of being just dismissive or ignorant?
Nice question. So, interestingly enough, the framework itself isn't something that I teach. I don't sit down and say, hey, today we're going to give a lesson on the heart. The framework is, think about a journey, a person's journey on personal development. Where do they start? What do they do next? What's next? What do they need now? What's the advice they need now? What is the tool they need to implement now? What are the routines they need to do now? When do they need to set goals? What type of goals? What type of knowledge do they need now? So imagine all of that information. It's like, all right, so where do I put this information, right? So I've systematically created the journey, but the journey is in each lesson or in each session that we have, we are going to be targeting either this component of yourself, this component of yourself. So in one session, for example, I might be talking on many different components. I'll be using the mind and then using the body, right? It's not just to take, I'm teaching you just on this and that. So when I approach a client, it's never about me. It's never about what I want to give. If I'm sitting with a client or a student, I have the information, I have the framework. It's about you. It's about what you want. What do you need? When I'm sitting, I never go into a session, into this conversation, I never go in with preconceived notion and thought of what I want to say. I go in, I trust myself to say the truth in the moment, and that I know what I need to say. I know that I have the resources to provide value, to help. And these resources are based off this framework. So when this person comes to me and tells me I'm having 1, 2, 3 issue, I know his problem is emotional regulation. So the problem right now is he doesn't have self-control. So I need to go to my framework and see what are the problems with the guardians, bring from the curriculum what he needs, and this is all happening internally, right? What he needs, and give it to him. So now, if I was to take you on a retreat, which I'm inshallah planning in the future, I'm going to be doing a men's retreat where I teach these courses over 4 or 5 days in depth. Then I will be targeting. I'll tell you, boys, today we are going to be targeting the mind. By the end of the day, you are going to know everything you need to know about the mind. But when I have sessions, it's different. So if I'm in a workshop scenario, I'll be tailoring the workshop accordingly. You might tell me, I need to do procrastination. Say, okay, I'll do a procrastination workshop. And the main elements I'm going to be working on is the mind and, let's say, the heart. So I know what to take and how to create what it is that you need. So it's all tailored in my field. It's all tailored. But inshallah, on the podcast that I've recently released, I will be going through the journey itself, starting from beginning, starting from the first step, and taking you on this journey. And you by yourself, you'll see, when are you working on this component of your inner kingdom? When are you working on this component? And later on,
yeah. So that's the AYM podcast.
AYM,
you've just started. Yes, so we'll tell the viewers a bit about that. What does it stand for, firstly? And so this is where they're going to get the knowledge about the kingdom, and more, and a lot more.
Yeah, AYM is access your majesty. So access your inner majesty. And the idea is that the famous hadith, man arifa nafsah faqad arifa rabbah, he who knows thyself knows thy Lord. It goes to show that ultimately your goal in life is going to be endlessly trying to discover and know yourself. And the more you do, the more majestic you become. And so we're trying to help you access your majesty through understanding yourself. So everything on this podcast is going to be about you. It's going to be about the listener and how can they take this tool and understand themselves. For example, the first episode is about paradigms. The first thing you need on your journey is you need to make sure that you're using the right lens to see the world, like you said before, right? If you're looking at it as a victim, then there's no room for growth. The first thing you need to do is change the paradigm. And then what's the next step, and the next step, and the next step? You'd have to follow the AYM podcast to find out.
No, most definitely, Ahsan. Even when you said that, just the interaction Imam Hassan alayhi salam had with the man from Syria, the Shami, who was traveling after when Mawla had passed, and just that interaction, how that changes his lens and his worldview. When someone's insulting, then you're inviting, and then you're trying to make life easy for him. It's crazy because the lens and the perspective ultimately controls. Oh, jeez, my bad there. I have to have that on silent. That's amateur hour from the J. But it's crazy in that sense because it is all about the ethos of the religion to give and to ensure that you are projecting the best version of yourself so that you're the lens for everyone to reciprocate. So they can see you as a representation of the religion. And the examples are two, and there are plenty. How do you keep this energy? Because everything you're saying needs someone to be motivated. You need to be in the drive. Now, I've spoken with many scholars, many academics from all walks of life. A lot of them struggle, especially when they're hearing problems after problems and they get burnt out. In the medical field or in the scholarly field, there's some sort of dehumanization that happens where they're not sensitized anymore, and then they just become numb. And when they become numb, then more often than not much help, and then they slowly start to fade away, and then you never see them again. What contingencies do you have in place to make sure, one, that doesn't happen to you, and are you aware of this?
Yeah, no, of course, man. Look, we all experience burnout. It is real, and it can get sometimes it can get tiring. Look, for me, I'm really grateful to have a powerful support system. You know, my lovely wife. I've got a few really close friends that I can confide in. But I like to take care of myself. Like I like to, for example, I go to the gym. That is a very important part and element of my life. And I know that when I'm not going to the gym, I start to feel the burnout more. When I am going to the gym, I feel like I can take on anything, to be honest with you. And it does play a role. Um, but when I do feel like, firstly, I have a rule. I will never ever go into a situation like, for example, a session with a student or a client or any session where I'm going to expected to give value unless I am 150% in. I will never ever approach someone if I am not. If I'm feeling tired or overwhelmed or stressed, I'll cancel. I don't mind canceling, but I would never go in, halfway. And so to maintain that, I try and keep equilibrium. I try and see when I'm overdoing it, I try and just stop, pause back. For example, I used to say yes to everything, to everyone. Whenever you want anything, I'm there. You want a Sahara, I'm there. You want a lecture, I'm there. You want a discuss, I'm there. I'm everywhere. I limited it. I stopped everything. I said, look, I have a Thursday night discussion and dua. If you want to see me, that's where I am. Everyone's welcome to one place, and mashallah, that's been growing. But once I did that, I realized like I don't need to expand that. So, but with that being said, um, I'm a very entrepreneurial type of guy. I like to do different things. Like for example, as right now as we're speaking, I'm actually launching a business which probably no one even knows about, and it's something I'm really passionate about, which is AI, artificial intelligence, right? And I'm launching a whole agency on improving businesses through AI solutions, and I've got developers and this whole thing. So I like to keep myself busy. I like to do things outside of just the same field, and to just keep things interesting.
So you haven't restricted yourself, which is positive because you're always out there, you're doing things different, and then you come. That probably reduces the burnout then, and
Yeah,
your personality, your character, you're very energetic. You're very out there. So when I see you speaking at the rally for the parents, it suits you to be there because you're that type of person that wants to send that message. And there's some people that say it and you don't feel it, and there's others when you say it and it's felt. Talk to us about that skill that you've had and how proactive are you on those fronts? Because you're active on many scenes. I've seen you in the prison system with Brother Nader Hamdan when you went to the prisons. You are also on the march. You're also in the schooling system. You're with the clients. I've seen you at mosques. Talk to us about how you take on all that. And is it the same person and the same role that you adopt in all facets?
honestly, man, I think, look, I am who I am. Like this person that's right now in front of you is the same person that gave a lecture a couple of months ago in Muharram, the same person that got up and gave that talk. And for a long time, I tried to be really strategic and tactical about how I portray myself. Now I say to myself, I need to be a man of integrity. I am who I am. The same person I am in under closed doors, I am outside. So anything that I do, whether it's giving a rally or a lecture or mosque, as long as it's in line with truth, and I feel like I'm doing something for truth, I'm paying back my debt to Sahib Zaman, then it's in line. And I stay who I am. I maintain my character. I'm not putting on a new persona. I'm not trying to play a different role. Like this is why this is one of my principles, and I'm standing up for a principle, or I'm sharing a value or a principle. But I try my best to just be honest. If I feel like I have to put on a face for someone or for a particular reason, then I most likely won't do that thing. Um,
No,
so I don't
that's
know if that answers. I don't
no,
know
no,
if that
for
answers
sure.
your question,
No,
but
no, for sure. Yeah, because it seems like from your youth, because you said that the Hulls started 17, 18. Seems like you always had this in you from your year six story where you're always a public
mm,
speaker, you're always an advocate, you're always someone who
mm,
backs yourself. It's continued throughout your adult life. Now, obviously, we always have twists, turns, we always question ourselves. There's always parts where we have to
mm,
grow, pick ourselves back up, and evolve and get to new heights. But you've taken that and you've hit every avenue and every endeavor, whether it's your entrepreneur, whether it's a speaking. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it is. And look, so I always knew I had that skill per se because I was a pretty confident kid. But I'll tell you where it sort of started to shift is when we were in Hausa, funnily enough. This was, I think, second or third year, Hausa. And we were a group of brothers, really close brothers. And we were from all different parts of the world. We had UK, USA, we had Canada, we had Germany. We called it the Western Union. We're like 18, 19 guys. And it was all in our early days. We all knew. Now all of these boys are, mashallah, really well known, very famous. You have the Sayyid Hassan Makki, you have Muhammad, all of these, Muhammad al-Shayar, you have all of these, mashallah, really successful. But back then, we were all new. So what we would do is every Wednesday we'd actually meet. So we all lived on campus. We lived together in the Hausa. And every Wednesday after dinner, two of us would have to give a lecture in front of the rest on any topic for 10, 15 minutes. And then they'd have to be critiqued by everyone else. And that's where, over time we started to, get better and better all together. And then, bro, after that, honestly, it was just experience. It was simply experience. It was just always putting myself in a places of discomfort. I always used to get nervous. Every time I would want to get up and give a speech, I would get nervous. I'd get scared, but I'd do it anyway and just keep going, keep going. Eventually, you trust yourself. Like now, for example, I know I just trust myself in the moment. I remember that the rally, for example, that speech I wrote just the night before, the parents' rally, and I was like, should I even write a speech? I think from my heart it'll come out better. But I thought, no, just in case, I'll write the speech. But if I know that if I trust myself that on a particular, if I'm going to speak about something, I have to be speak about something I know, something I'm certain about. I'm not going to speak about something I'm not sure of, something I'm certain about. And if I'm certain about something, then I trust myself to be able to articulate it in the way that's necessary. And that's how I go on, man.
No, it's inspiring because a lot of people may know you, may not know you, may see you here and there. And it's nice to afford the insight into a journey because then they see the human version of you. Then they can maybe connect or they can maybe see where they're going wrong and where they can add to their arsenal to get to that next level because the nerves exist for everyone. And whenever you're doing a new venture and whenever you're doing something that's meaningful or worthwhile, there's going to be some sort of discomfort. There's never someone who puts themselves out there and it means anything that they won't have those feelings. So it's totally normal. I think more often than not, when someone does something different in many societies and communities, they're probably labeled and they're probably perceived as something that is against the norm and it's seen in a negative aspect. And that deters a lot of people, a lot of children, a lot of up and comers that have potential, but don't actualize it because they weren't nurtured in the correct way or they're disheartened or they saw something. Talk to us about that aspect about yourself. In life, twists and turns occur. How have you taught or learned or acquired, or has this been something that's always in you? When everything's against you, you come out shining. And I don't want to give too many examples. I'm more leaning towards one that I've seen from you, but you step up and you just say, it's fine. There's no problem. A lot of people don't have that. And some people in their youth may be will fight fire with fire. And I know it's a part of religiosity to give seniors an exemption. And I don't know if you've connected with the story that I'm going.
I know what you're going with. Yeah,
but a lot of children in this day and age will take that in a different aspect. How have you acquired the patience or the tolerance to ensure that you maintain yourself despite the difficulty?
Bro, look, honestly, and the way we're speaking, it's like I've mastered. I haven't mastered. I'm still working on myself, of course. But I remember for a long time, this was me. For a long time. This is, of course, we're talking the teens, right? I was that much of a victim that I'd always prepare my excuse before I'd done something. Because I knew I wanted to make an excuse. When I started to shift, obviously things happened, my life changed. I grew up, but when that period came in my life, I started to shift completely my perception of myself. I started to change. I wanted to go the whole complete opposite side, from victim to the complete opposite. I never, ever, ever want to focus on anything that's not in my control. Now, it was too extreme. So I always tried to, in every single moment, I started to reframe. And this is how, basically, to answer your question without going the whole leke, I acquired two things, two essential beliefs that changed the way that I perceive the world. Two things. And in that moment that you're thinking of right now, at that particular time, it was these two things that held me and that kept me grounded. The first is the true belief, the true certainty and conviction that God would never burden me with something that I cannot handle. That's the first principle. It's a principle that I carry. And the second principle is that surely with hardship comes ease. Because hardship and ease are two sides to one coin. It's up to me. Do I want to look at the hardship or do I want to look at the ease? So anytime anything happens to me, in that particular moment, I said to myself, the microphone was taken, and I said to myself, Muhammad, take a deep breath. I'm having this inner dialogue, right? And I encourage the viewers and the brothers and the sisters who ever listen to this, try this. We all have our internal dialogues, but try and be in control of that in dialogue. I sat down and I'm like to myself, take a deep breath. I took a deep breath. I'm like, all right, whatever happened just happened. What is God trying to teach you here? And that is the only question you are allowed to focus on. Not why did this happen? How did this happen? How can he do this to me? Why did this happen to me? This is so embarrassing. What are people going to think? What are people going to say? No. Forget all of that. Right now, this happened. There's a reason why this happened. There's something that's going to come out of this. Focus on that. What is it? What is the thing that's going to come out of this? And so I did. You have two options. I said to myself, you can get up and leave, or you can stay. And you stay in control. And so I did. And many different things have happened in my life where I stop and I say to myself, hold on, before getting stressed. It's okay to be stressed. It's okay to be anxious. Right now, there's a lot of uncertainty. Dhaini, I literally say to myself, it's okay to be uncertain and scared. But what is the outcome? What are you looking for? What are you trying to achieve? What's God trying to teach you? And changing my thought process and starting with that question gives you so much more control over the outcome versus why did he do this? Why? Because, bro, if I say, why did he do this? Guess what? I'm never going to get an answer. I can never answer on behalf of someone else. But if I say, what could I have done better? I can find answers.
Most definitely.
I can close the loop.
Do you feel that's because the way you live your life, you've got to be consistent? It goes down to the principle. It's like muscle memory. If you're at that moment, if that's an exception for you to be thinking like that and questioning and, having a God-conscious mindset, more often than not, it's not going to work. So is the way you live your life and the way that you make your day-to-day decision the mold for you in that moment? Because a lot of people might go wrong because more often than not, they're not doing the right thing 24 hours a day.
No, absolutely, man. Look, one of the most important books that I've ever read, one of the life-changing books that I've read, is called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and I always reference it. So if you know me, if you listen to my stuff before, I've referenced this book. And one of the main reasons why I love this book was because in the time I had read, dozens and dozens of books, and I was really into personal development. I had spent over $30,000-$40,000 on courses and investing in myself, and entrepreneur, and this course and that course. But this was one of the first books that I read that highlighted the difference between character development and personal development. He says there's a difference between personality and character. He says personality is the face and the act that you put on to achieve X, Y, and Z result in X, Y, and Z situation. So for example, if you want to be a successful entrepreneur and whatever, you have to act in a particular way. You have to be an influential speaker, and talking about how to act. so you can get so and so. He says, whereas character is about the inside. It's about being. It's not about acting. It's about integrity. It's about you live your life based on principles. You live your life, one principle dictates your life. It's not you apply different values and principles in life. If you right now believe that one of my principles in life is I am to be a responsible human being. I am responsible for myself, for my decisions, for my actions. If you take that, then you apply it in every part of your life. That is when you're seeing true growth, because it's something that's a principle. Whereas versus saying, I'm going to be good in this environment or act good in this environment so I can get X outcome. You're no longer living with integrity. And for me, that's why I said before, when you asked me about the 5 different, I said I'm the one person, because I try and be a person of integrity. Like the person that I am at home, the person that I am, my friends, with scholars, with students, I try to be the same person. Yes, of course, I be wise. You have to understand the context and how to carry yourself in context and how to act in context. Of course, we're not animals, but it's the same character. It's a consistency in character.
No, God bless you. So this is all things and that you've learnt over the time and over your years, and you're trying to give back, and you're all about helping people reach their potential. How do people get a hold of this? Because you must have Facebook, Instagram, and where do people see you on this Thursday night to grow this community? So they see you, they heard your story, they're inclined to you. How do they get closer?
Okay, so there's a few ways you can contact me. So number one is you can DM me on Instagram or on Facebook. And if you do want to attend these Thursday nights, which by the way are amazing gatherings, we have a dark mail and we have a beautiful discussion, and it's such a beautiful environment. Feel free to DM me, because we do it in certain places. There's also my website is coming live soon. The website will have a directory of my resources and everything that we're working on the project. So inshallah, feel free to stay tuned for that. And there's also the AYM podcast. You can feel free to put any of your questions there, and you can send me an email at mohamed.dhaini with 2 i's at gmail.com.
I will put that in the bio as well for the podcast episode.
Yeah.
Tell the viewers what's next. What is there to expect? Now, we know you're launching your new brand, your new product, the AI service.
Yeah.
What you've got the podcast going, you're teaching, you're taking in clients, and they can catch you on Thursday. Anything else? Anything new?
I just know that. So don't spread your wings too wide. I've been working on many different projects for a long time, and that's why they're all sort of finishing at the same time, right? But my advice is don't spread your wings too much. It's so tiring. It's so stressing. It's really. But my movement forward is really to just give as much information for free to the public, and to finally share the message, because I've been getting amazing feedback from so many people, and I feel bad to not share this information and this platform with you guys. So that's now. I won't ask anyone for anything, inshallah. In the meantime, for now,
look, you gotta live. You gotta live. We gotta be humble. Look, I'll talk on your behalf. You keep the humble character. I'll give it real to the people. When you like someone, you got to support them. There is an obligation on both in these transactions to give and to support. And I think more often than not, where we fall short is, as a society, community, on a madhab level, on every level, we fall short in ensuring that we are a voice, we are an extended arm, and we are supporters of people who are doing something different. And I think people do get afraid too often than not. Like, for example, if I have a podcast, I can't have this guy on because he's got a podcast. That's a negative mindset. We grow together.
Absolutely.
You believe rizq is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to give you what you're owed. You put in the work and you reap the reward.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that, my brother. No, wallah, look, our community is a community that has been suffering for a long time. Let's be honest. Let's be frank. Like, it's safe to say that we're no longer united. There's a lack of leadership, and I think it's up to us, like the new generation, the youth, to really step up and say, okay, then how can we help each other? Like what are the means? And podcasting. I've been following you for a while as well, but you've been doing amazing things on your podcast, bro. Well done. And
I've
that's
been
why, like,
annoying people.
that's why I was really excited for this podcast and waiting for a long time because I know you've been working hard. And bro, that's it. Like everyone does their part. Everyone has different strengths. Everyone has different unique abilities. Everyone access their own unique potential and give in your own unique way. We're not supposed to give and do everything the same, But I'm a big fan of collaboration, and I believe that the up and coming brothers in the community, we should literally build a database of resources where we're each other's resources. Like we are there for each other. And whenever I need someone or someone needs me, I should be there for them. And inshallah, that's where we can get to that level. But we'll start at the grassroots for now and see we'll get to in the future, inshallah.
Nah, inshallah. Nah, God bless you. I'm very inspired. I love the journey. I love the insight that you've afforded us. Give the viewers a final comment, final statement.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time, your attention. I take your attention extremely, it's such a blessing and honor. My advice to you, my friend, my brother, my sister, is always try to be consistent. Allow your thoughts and your beliefs and your actions to be consistent. If you feel like you're doing something that's contradictory to what you believe, then allow yourself to stop. Instead of always believing everything you think and thinking that what you're doing is right. I know it sounds like it's a complicated piece of advice, but if you think about it, maybe rewind that a bit and think about it, will play a big role. Moving forward, don't forget our brothers and our sisters and all the displaced and the ones who are suffering oppression and pain and hardship and torment overseas. Keep them in your du'as, keep them in your mind, in your attention, where the Muslim body is one body, and when one of us is hurt, we're all hurt. So inshallah, we're able to keep them in our heart and always remember their struggle and do whatever we can to support, with our at least with our minds, with our words, with our social media. And may Allah bless you.
Nah, God bless you. It's been an honor and a privilege. Inshallah, one of many episodes, one of many more collabs to go.
Inshallah, thank you very much for your time.
Nah, legend. As always, pleasure's on us. Fi aman Allah. Assalamu alaikum to the viewers.
Wa alaikum assalam.
God bless you.